Hey guys, what's up? Okay, so I don't really know how to preface this. I'm just gonna dive right in. I have tried so hard for so very long to avoid the topic of Caitlyn Jenner on my YouTube channel. Now, I guess that could be kind of surprising because usually I don't shy away from issues that are controversial, but the reason I've chosen mainly stay away from talking about Caitlyn Jenner is just because of the fact that I feel like her situation is exceedingly complicated. She is an older transgender woman with a lot of white privilege and wealth privilege who really has not been able to experience the life that most transgender people experience, and also just really has not had any kind of connection with the community. And so she would have a tendency to say a lot of really uneducated, ignorant things. And for the longest time, I really wished that she wasn't speaking in a position where people would look at her as being representative of, like, all trans people in our community or anything. But I was still willing to, like, kind of be like, let's cut her some slack, let's educate her. She needs time to learn all this shit. She hasn't had the experiences we've had, so, let's just give her a little bit of time and see if she can do better. And you know what? I'm done with that now. Miss Jenner, you've been out for damn well long enough to know better by this point. Not to mention that I know for a fact now that you have met other transgender people since then, and you've gotten to know other transgender people since then, and you just really have no excuse to be showing the blatant level of ignorance and internalized transphobia that you are. You did a great and wonderful and amazing thing when you made your award acceptance speech. That was powerful, it was moving, it said so many things that really needed to be said, and it was coming from someone that people at that point in time had a tendency to want to listen to. You changed a lot of minds and hearts with that one, and, I personally am never going to let that stop meaning a whole lot to me, so, props for that. But since then, things have just been a complete and total train wreck. And seriously, how dare you? We were rooting for you! I was rooting for you! How dare you? Alright, so I may have just let that Tyra Banks meme take me over for a second, but seriously, it's fucked up. It's really fucked up at this point. And to me, it just really hurts because, I was one of the people who was standing there when you said stupid things about marriage equality, and when you said stupid, uneducated things that just carried internalized transphobia with them, standing up in your defense saying that, we don't know where you're coming from, you haven't had the experiences, you don't have a reason to know better, and that you just, you need to be educated, you need to learn, but you've had so much opportunity for that, and really, it's unacceptable at this point. And you know what? I'm not sorry. So many of you are aware the latest piece of absolute bullshit to fly out of Miss Jenner's mouth has to do with people being uncomfortable around transgender people. Specifically, Miss Jenner stated that if you're someone who looks like a man in a dress, it's going to make people uncomfortable. Now, there's a couple of ways to look at that. And in the past, without so much bullshit having happened, I may have been willing to look at it from the point of view of just kind of a statement of an unfortunate fact that, people look at transgender people and they see someone who they think looks like a man in a dress, and it does make people uncomfortable, which is bullshit, but it is true. You can make a statement about that if you are then going to proceed to talk about how it is absolute and total bullshit and how society needs to change and it's wrong. That's a little bit different. I'll even forgive the fact that the language of that statement is entirely transphobic just because of the fact that, what it could be trying to say, if we took it in this preferable direction, would be to basically wake up society and say, hey, this is full of shit. However, that just really does not seem to be the way the statement is being used in this situation. It's much more a justification of this idea almost, this kind of victim-blaming idea that we as transgender people should just expect it. It has so many horrible, negative, transphobic implications. It implies that we owe society a cis-passing appearance, which is a complete and total load of bollocks. It implies that transgender people who don't pass well enough or don't make an effort to try to pass well as cisgender are somehow to blame for transphobia and transphobic violence that may occur to them. And probably worst of all, it goes back to the whole tired myth of comparing a transgender woman to a man in a dress, which is complete and utter garbage. So I chose to do this video today a very specific way. As you can tell, I'm not wearing any makeup, I haven't shaved this morning because I shaved yesterday, and with my hormones, the hair growth just isn't fast enough for me to really feasibly be able to shave on the second day. My chest hasn't been shaved in, like, God knows how long. I shaved my legs a couple days ago, but, like, that's coming back now, too. And I also haven't plucked my eyebrows in a while. There's a specific reason I did that. Because the kind of people who buy into the transphobic kind of bullshit that's coming out of Miss Jenner's mouth, which is going to probably be like most cisgender people, and actually, surprisingly and horrifyingly, a lot of transgender people as well, would look at me and tell me that I am not trying hard enough, and I need to try harder to pass if I want anyone to respect my gender identity, or take it seriously, or anything else like that. And you know what? You guys are full of shit. So I'm gonna try not to go too in-depth into this little tangent, but let me explain something to you. Man is not a sex. Woman is not a sex. Man and woman are genders. Gender and sex are not the same thing. Sex is what's in your pants, gender is what's in your brain. And despite what you may want to think, they're not correlated. Most people are cisgender. Most people's sex and gender sit well with each other and everything is hunky-dory. That is a coincidence. People have a tendency to fall into these two ideas referred to as the gender binary and the sex binary. Both of these things are social constructs. That's the thing that people love to take and run with, because they think that when I say that, they frequently think that I'm talking about, like, gender roles or something, or they'll be like, well, you know, if gender is a social construct, then how can you claim to be a different gender than what would supposedly match up with your birth sex? Simple. I never said that genders were fake. I said that the gender binary is fake. The gender binary is the idea that there are two genders completely distinct of each other, and that those two genders are going to inextricably match up with whatever your birth sex is. Alright, so now I don't have the time to go in depth with this today because that's not what this video is about, and this will be like a topic for another video. But there are more than two sexes. There are more than two possible combinations of chromosomes, and the combination of chromosomes is not even what determines the sex anyway. All embryos start out as female and will develop as female, male, or any number of intersex sexes in between, regardless of their chromosomal makeup, mainly influenced by hormonal factors during very early embryonic development. And even if we ignore all of the different chromosomal combinations that can occur, like triple X chromosome, triple XY chromosome, triple X double Y chromosome, etc., on and on and on, and even if we decide to only look at simple XX chromosome and XY chromosome combinations, in spite of the fact that that XX chromosome combination will generally code for the proper developments in order for an embryo to remain female, and those XY chromosomes will generally code for the proper developments for an embryo to develop completely as male, you do have people who have an XY chromosome who remain entirely female, you do have people who have an XX chromosome who develop entirely male, and you do have people with either set that end up somewhere on the spectrum in between. And I'm not talking about gender in this case, I'm literally talking about birth sex. Intersex examples exist in every species of mammal. Humans are no exception. The only difference in humans is that when intersex people happen, we routinely just decide to arbitrarily assign them as either male or female based on the size of their external genitals, regardless of what the makeup of those genitals are and whether or not there are also internal genitals that do or do not correspond to one sex or the other, or to neither of what we think are those supposed two sexes. And then often we end up mutilating those genitals to make sure that they will fit into whichever category we've arbitrarily assigned them to. I know, horrifying, isn't it? A child with, like, no say in the matter just as soon as they come out of its mother having their genitals mutilated. All to maintain this idea that male and female are the only things that there are. And the gender binary is a social construct too. Genders are a real thing. Male and female genders, and people who are agender and bigender and gender fluid, and any number of demigenders or other genders in between male and female, just outside of that binary spectrum, entirely exist and are valid. And these are not orientations, they have nothing to do with who you do or don't like, they also have very little at all to do with gender roles. They have much more to do with things like behavioral patterns, self-identity, the qualia of the personal experience, and in some cases, how you relate to your body, or how your behavioral patterns might be altered or affected by what kind of balance of hormones you have going through your body and your brain, and how society decides to treat you. And that's really just a very basic and insufficient explanation. I mean, there is a reason why gender studies is something that you can major in, but just suffice to say, there's absolutely no evidence or reason why we should be only legitimizing two genders or saying that gender is at all linked to sex. I mean, in most cases, most people are cisgender and have a sex and a gender that sit comfortably with one another, but that's really just a happy coincidence that just happens to be significantly more common than the other way around. But because of the fact that these very early hormonally driven developments can and do occur differently and separately in the brain from the genitals, there's no guarantee that's going to happen, and in many cases it doesn't, and we do end up with people who have a gender that does not sit well with their sex. This is something that studies have shown and are continuing to show and prove to be true. And we frankly didn't even need the science to back it up to know this. Nearly every early or primitive, if you want to be racist about it, society has known from the beginning that there are not just two genders and has never had any concept of gender binary and has instead had at least 4, if not 5 or more genders. Seriously, do your research on Native American society or Greek society or any number of other early societies before we had this whole Judeo-Christian idea of a sex binary and a gender binary that was spread by white colonialism in the 1600s and 1700s, and you will find that not only were there more than 2 genders, but the people who were transgender were not only not hassled over it or rejected over it, they were generally greatly honored. In many Native American societies, people who were considered to be two-spirit or otherwise of the 3rd, 4th, or in some cases even 5th genders were accorded special spiritual significance and seen as very wise, seen as people who should be put in positions as leaders, especially just in spiritual types of dealings. In Greek society, transgender women were the only people who were allowed to become priestesses of the transgender goddess Hermaphrodites. So this whole institutionalized transphobic society thing is actually very new in human culture, and it's something that needs to be a very, very, very brief phase, like ending, oh, say, now. Once you get to this point of realizing that there is no sex binary and there is no gender binary, it becomes really hard to continue justifying your fucking transphobia. So, back to the whole man in a dress thing. If you see a transgender woman in a dress, it doesn't matter if she's on hormone replacement therapy or not, whether she's had any type of surgical procedures done or not, whether she plans on having any kind of surgical procedures done or not. All that matters is that her gender is female. If she is a woman, you can acknowledge that she is a transgender woman, that she is a woman who was born with a penis, a woman who was born designated male, whatever you want to say, and still acknowledge that she is a woman and a real woman at that. Because she is. And for fuck's sake, she might not even be wearing a dress. I mean, if it's me, odds are I'm wearing leggings or jeans or something else with some kind of tank top or something. And that's nothing to be scared of. It's nothing to be uncomfortable about. It's a woman just like any other woman walking around, and her genitals may or may not be different from your own, but, I mean, what the fuck is that supposed to have to do with anything? Not to mention that you're probably making like a million assumptions to get to that point based on like things that you think are tells, but are not. But you know, all the same, I've seen this discomfort. I deal with it every day. You go to the grocery store and you're walking down the aisle and some family is walking by who has kids and they just snatch their kids away as soon as they notice you walking down the same aisle as though you're going to like snatch them and you're some kind of perv or child molester or something. You know, some people that won't even just walk down the same aisle as you because it seems like they're afraid that transness is some kind of disease that they're gonna end up catching or something. And then you've got the fucking bathroom bullshit, which I don't even feel like addressing because it's just ridiculous. And it's kind of hilarious, except that, you know, this is the kind of bullshit that ends up with trans people being murdered and then those murders being justified. Because it's like watching people from like the fucking 1600s or something being superstitious about women, essentially. And I really mostly mention transgender women because, like, no one ever stops to even think about the fact that transgender men exist, and that's kind of fucking sad. And, you know, a lot of these arguments would probably be solved if transgender men had more visibility and people kind of wake up and realize that being transgender is not something that is exclusive to transgender women. I guess mainly just because it really forces you to break all of those things that you thought you knew about us. But seriously, like, if y'all could look and see how fucking ignorant and backwards you look when you're behaving like this, you'd probably laugh your fucking asses off and then run somewhere where you could just spend the rest of eternity being embarrassed and never poking your head out again. There's absolutely no reason to be made uncomfortable by a transgender woman. We're not here to infiltrate your restrooms and spy on you. We're not here to take your children away. We're not here to trick people into thinking that we're cisgender women. We're here to live our lives like every other human being on the planet. And a lot of the time, unfortunately, y'all won't even let us do that. And you know what? If you're not gonna get it, you're not gonna get it. I hate to let my southern out, but you know, you can't fix stupid. But the point is that just a transgender woman is not a fucking man in a dress. But you know what? I'm not done with this whole argument because I'm going to take it a step further because as a feminist, I just love doing that. Let's say somewhere you did run into a man in a dress. What the fuck is even wrong with that? Because you know what? I guarantee you, there are men who like to wear dresses. Some of those men have vaginas. Some of them have penises. And what the fuck does it matter what genitals you have or even what gender you are as to whether or not you're going to wear a particular style of clothing? This is entirely manufactured by society. And so is like half the bullshit that people use to try and decide whether someone is a man or a woman, even if they are not transphobic. You know, obviously if you see me, I have breasts, it's obvious that I'm on hormone replacement therapy, and then I have all these other things like long hair and painted nails and just you know, the way I dress, all this shit, my makeup that screams to people that I'm a woman. Guess what? The only one of those things that should scream to you that I'm a woman is the fact that I am on hormone replacement therapy and growing breasts by my own volition. And I mean, even that is not necessarily indicative that I consider myself to be entirely female. I could be gender fluid, I could be bigender, I could be agender, you just don't know. The only way for you to know what gender I am is if I tell you. And I guarantee you, none of that has to do with my trappings. I do these things because I like doing these things. There are plenty of transgender women who don't like dresses, don't like skirts, don't like painting their nails, don't like wearing makeup, etc., 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 and they're valid, they're women. There are plenty of cisgender women who do the same things, and we don't question whether or not they're women. And similarly, there are plenty of men who may enjoy painting their nails, enjoy wearing dresses, whatever you want. And there's some fucking idiots out there who would try to say that these men are actually transgender women who are just like not being forthright with them about themselves, but like, no. I'm talking about men who are happy having their penises, happy having everything about their bodies exactly the way it is, happy being male, happy living in that role, but just do not want to dress the way society tells them they should dress. And that's fine. I mean, you know, if a woman wears pants, we don't assume and start calling her a man. At least we don't anymore, you know, for just not dressing in clothing that we generally associate with being female, even if it is literally clothing from the men's section. So what is this deal with us telling men that they can't wear dresses? The answer is misogyny, plain and simple. I mean, think about it. It's fucked up. Our society is so woman-hating that we tell a man that being anything like a woman is the worst thing that he could possibly ever be. It's the root of a lot of problems. It's the root of homophobia because we assume that a man liking a man makes him like a woman and therefore that's bad. It's the root of transphobia because we are once again making this incorrect assumption that we are looking at a man being a woman and being a woman is like the worst thing a man can be, so it's bad again. It's even just in our casual fucking insults. When a man is weak, we call him a pussy as though weakness was even anything that would be associated with women whatsoever. Hint, it's not, and associating weakness with women is fucked up in of itself. But seriously, it's like all these most horrible insults we can throw at a man. You throw like a girl, you run like a girl, telling men not to be emotional because we associate being emotional with something that women do, even though it's not an exclusively female trait. It's so ridiculous. We tell men what hobbies they can and can't do because we say that things like sewing and crafty things are women's things, and therefore it's bad for men to do that. And then it comes all the way around full circle, all the way into clothing, where we tell a man that he cannot wear the types of clothing that a woman would wear because being a woman is bad. Being like a woman is bad, apparently. I mean, for the love of God, people, it's clothing. We were all born naked. We are the only animals that wear clothing. It is absolutely fucking bizarre. And the shape of that clothing is entirely arbitrary. There are many cultures and times where men would be wearing what could rightly be referred to as a type of skirt or a dress. There were times when we were all wearing togas. There were times when the women were wearing pants well before feminism became a thing. I mean, there's just absolutely no reason that your sex or your gender should determine what clothing you are and are not allowed by society to wear. As a matter of fact, society has absolutely no business telling anyone for any reason whatsoever what kind of clothing they should and shouldn't wear, I guess unless we're trying to prevent some kind of indecent exposure, by which I pretty much exclusively mean exposing genitals in public, because frankly it's pretty fucked up that one gender's breasts are considered fine while the others are not. But really, that's just a topic for a whole other video. Now, in wrapping this up, I'm gonna bring it back around to misgender. We're frustrated. We're disappointed. I'm frustrated and disappointed. We're pretty much all frustrated and disappointed. And you know, I'm never gonna stop acknowledging that you did a really wonderful thing with your speech coming out, and also the fact that, you know, transitioning in the spotlight like you have, you know, is an incredible thing to do and an inspiration for a lot of people. However, unless you're going to educate yourself and learn more about what transgender life is really like for all the rest of us and the oppressions that we all face and go through, and kind of, you know, train yourself out of this internalized transphobia that, I mean, a lot of us have from the get-go, but just eventually learn our ways out of, we would really appreciate it if you would stop speaking for us. You can just go on and live the rest of your life. We don't need your help anymore. You know, there may be people who feel like I am being rude to misgender for saying that, but it really does seem to be the majority opinion of the transgender community, and rightly so, that we just don't want you speaking for us right now. You're detached from the reality of it all, and you're not helping, and you're really kind of harming us in a lot of ways. So, I mean, nothing against you personally. You're probably a great and wonderful person, but we do not want you speaking on behalf of the transgender community anymore. Mainly because of the fact that you're like the only one anyone is paying any attention to or listening to. If we had like a bunch of other transgender people to give an accurate representation of us as a group that other people were actually paying attention to and listening to, things would probably be a little bit different, and I'd still probably get really angry and pissed off about a lot of the dumb shit that flies out of your mouth sometimes. But it would not be so much of a thing where we would necessarily want you to shut up, because, you know, we would at least have it balanced out by people who know what it's like. And, I mean, you know, if we had to have one figurehead, you would not be my first pick, or a lot of people's first pick, for that matter. There are plenty of other people who are a lot more qualified to be doing that. You got people like Laverne Cox, like Janet Mock, who could really, you know, use a little bit more attention than what they're getting right now. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my personal favorite, Carmen Carrera, because she's been doing a lot of great social justice work lately, and she's got her head on straight and knows what she's talking about and is really effective at presenting it. And also just, you know, I can tell from the fact that I've actually had the opportunity on a couple of occasions to briefly speak with her, is just really, really down to earth. And that's what we really need. We need people who understand what it's like to come from places where they didn't have privileges like Caitlyn has had. We need people who are down to earth and down with the community and are not kind of putting themselves up on a pedestal and not reaching out to the rest of the community, paying attention to everything that's going on, and really giving a shit about everything. And you know, Caitlyn, don't feel bad. I wouldn't want to put myself at the forefront of the movement either. I mean, I obviously want to make my voice as loud as possible so that I can educate as many people as I can, but I mean, I can recognize that I'm not the best person to be like a figurehead for the trans community. I'm angry and tactless in a lot of cases, but I would not put you there either for totally different reasons. You know, you seem very personable, very charismatic. You just really don't know what you're talking about. Both of those things are important, but if we were going to say that one was any more important than the other, it would be knowing what you're talking about. As always, thank you so very much for watching, and especially thank you to my supporters on Patreon.com. If you're not one of my Patreon supporters yet and you want to find out how you can get awesome rewards like these autographed prints for my modeling shoots mailed straight to your door and other nifty things for your support, just go to patreon.com/DeliaMelody to find out how you can get signed up. I also want to thank my new special co-host Bailey, because she's pretty and lovely and awesome and quiet so that I can yell and rant about stuff. Thanks again, and until next time, wear whatever the fuck you want and be yourself.